At the beginning, Peter, could you tell us, the Polish viewers and listeners, what do you do for a living, and could you give us some numbers, which especially you have in your bio in the
Yeah,
Instagram?
for sure. So my name's Peter Zaitzeff, and I'm a broker in New York City. I've been a broker here for around 15 years. I've been fortunate to work on close to $5 billion in deals, maybe even more than that now. I have to recalculate from last year.
Dołącz do loży przedsiębiorców, buduj wartościowe relacje i zdobywaj unikalną wiedzę, która uczyni Twój biznes jeszcze silniejszym.
$5 billion in deals, and probably within that, I want to say 2,000-ish transactions, right? So a lot of deals, a lot of high profile deals, a lot of high volume deals. But I also pride myself in doing sort of everything. So it's not just the big deals. Yes, the big deals are really nice, but they often take a long time to curate the buyer and for the buyer to become comfortable with me as their agent and their friend. So I pride myself on working on everything. So I do uptown, downtown, left, right, and center. I do investment properties, co-ops, condos, rentals. I'll oftentimes do a lot of rentals for friends that need apartments, and I'll do that as like a favor so that down the road in 5, 10, 15 years when they can afford to buy an apartment, they look to me to buy an apartment.
What is the upside of being on Netflix, and are there any downsides?
So I think the upside is that you get a lot more, your profile raises, right? Because you're being seen by millions of people, not just in New York, but in the United States and around the globe, because I think it's syndicated to 150 countries. So definitely my profile has risen in that way. You know, I get recognized on the street sometimes, so that's sort of fun. Or at least when I'm with my kids, it's sort of fun because they're like, you got to get recognized, and they think that their daddy's cool. So that's been the biggest change. I would say that like I'm starting to, has been risen. I can't say that I can say that I've done like a deal off of it or that I've gotten a client off of it per se, but I think there's intangibles there that people are calling me more often and recognizing me more often, and therefore I'm getting more business.
Are there any downsides?
So downsides, when I decided to join the show, and there was other opportunities for me in the past where, you know, I had a young family, I didn't want to be on TV. So what I was most concerned about is like criticism and being portrayed in a way that I'm not. So being portrayed unauthentically. I think that my portrayal on the show was positive overall. So that's what I was most concerned about. I haven't seen much of a downside. If anything, it's taught me that I'm like a very sensitive person at heart, right? So it has taught me that I'm a lot stronger than I thought that I was, because you do get criticisms and like, you know, people nitpick things and so on and so forth. But like, I haven't taken any of that stuff that I would have thought, 5 years ago that I'd really take to heart, that I would be sort of downtrodden because of hearing something negative about me. I realize that being a public figure, there's good stuff and there's bad stuff. But it's definitely taught me that I'm a lot stronger that way than I thought I was, which is really cool. That's the best thing that I got out of the show.
I'm aware that we have a list of questions, but we are recording at the beginning of the March, so I need to ask about this. Do you think that the whole situation, which is currently going on in the Middle East, will affect in some way that more capital will flow to the New York City? The real
I
estate
think
market?
we've been seeing for the last 6, 8, 9 months a lot of money, still foreign investment coming into the United States, and specifically, what I focus in New York. what did the war start on Saturday? But I know we had the conflict with Iran before this, where we did we attacked their nuclear facility. But I haven't seen a slowdown just yet. Maybe it's a little too early to tell if we'll see foreign capital sort of dry up. But New York City I've been in the business for 15 years. I think this is the strongest market I've ever seen. And I don't think that will change for the next, I actually have very strong opinions on the market here for the next 2 years. The problem with New York City is it's a limited piece of land, right? It's a small island, and there's not enough places to build here. So inventory right now is at an all-time low. There's 3,900 units in new inventory and available on the market. So that's shadow inventory plus what you see like when you go on StreetEasy or Zillow and you're looking up units. There's another 1,900 units planned between now and the end of 2027, right? So that puts it about 6,000 units. We absorb the market on a traditional quarter 600 to 625 units per quarter. So if you do the math, we'll basically be at a zero inventory by the end of 2027. And that will artificially raise demand, raise prices, because there's not going to be a place to buy in the city. And people have always gravitated to New York. And for better or worse, this is the financial capital of the world. It's the social capital of the world, and it's the real estate capital of the world. And that's been the same thing since basically the Dutch founded it, right? And that will never change. So you're still gonna have an inflow of buyers here, and demand will just probably increase given the lack of inventory. I see if you're not buying, like I'm telling buyers now, and I've never really, like I'm a broker that does not push you, tell you to buy something, or, I'm not pushy. I don't make cold calls. All of my clients come to me organically. And I firmly believe that if you're not buying in New York City in the next 6, 8, 12 months, unless you're Jeff Bezos, it's going to be unaffordable.
Let's focus on your career. And I have a first question. What was the single hardest barrier you had to break to be taken seriously in the Manhattan luxury real estate?
So I look at every buyer differently, right? And it's not every buyer is a challenge, right? And or seller. And honestly, maybe it wasn't a buyer and or seller. I got into the business. I was in the restaurant business before this with my family. I got out of the business, didn't know what I was going to do for 6 months. And I met a guy on my street that I recognized, and he lived in a very fancy building. He looked like a rainmaker, and he ended up being a rainmaker in new development. And basically I pursued him for 6 months, became his friend, and was like, I want to come and work for you. And for 6 months he said, no. And then finally at the end of 6 months, I was like, I will be an unpaid intern, but I need to do something. It was the summertime. I was like 28, 29 years old, second job, but I was like, I'll be unpaid for 3 months, for whatever period of time you need me to prove myself that I can make it in this business. So I think that was like, not the hardest. That was my entry into the business, and I did it the right way, and I did it the organic way, and I fought tooth and nail to get to that position, and I got the opportunity. I feel very lucky in my career, right? I've had a lot of opportunities, but if you look back at it, I fought for those things, right? Asking the guy for a job for 6 months, and then being an unpaid intern for 3 months, I put my foot in the door. And yes, it was a lot of hard work. Could I go back right now and do that? Probably not, because I'm 41 with 2 kids and I've got a mortgage and I've got 2 apartments and car, whatever. Life gets a lot more complicated as you get older. But at 28, I was young, hungry, and ready to fight tooth and nail to get the job.
Manhattan is one of the most competitive real estate markets on earth. What separates agents who survive from those who dominate?
So I think when it comes to like my career, and again, going back, like all of my clients have come organically from putting myself in the right situation at the right time and then working very, very hard. Right situation. So like my first building that I worked on was 150 Charles. So 150 Charles is a building in the West Village, right? And I was the intern, and then I got put onto that project as like a glorified admin. And what I did at that project was there's a thing called an offering plan in new development in New York City. It's like a book this thick, probably, anywhere from 12 to 1,500 pages. And it's basically the Bible for that building for the guarantee for the developer to the buyer, right? Because if you're buying off plan, you can't just say that you're going to put in double pane windows that have an OITC rating of 32 and then put in a single pane window that doesn't have an OITC rating. You have to guarantee, the Attorney General has to have a guarantee from the developer on what you're delivering. So I learned that book cold, memorized the whole thing. And not just that, but I memorized all of the floor plans, all the square footages. The building wasn't even built yet, but I could tell you what the view looked like, right? So I knew all of that stuff when I got on that project. And the brokers on that project were, I think, the strongest brokers of their generation and still are. So because I was so knowledgeable, I was put on showings with them because they were with buyers and they wanted to know the facts like right away. And I was able to go. And I was able to answer all of those questions anybody had. I forget the first part of this question because I want to make sure that I end on the answer.
The first part was what separates agents who survive from those who dominate.
Correct. So what separates agents that survive, I think you need to be organic, right? You can't force things. A lot of agents will cold call and they'll just go out and try and just get a listing, and then they'll never see that buyer and or seller again. I think that you need to progress in your career in a way that you're gaining knowledge along the way, and then you're deploying that knowledge as you go. If you think that you're smarter than everybody else and you think that you're the best broker than everybody else right away, like you're not going to survive in this business because you're not, because people are smart. They understand who knows things and who doesn't know things. And so I would say that it takes time to become a really good broker and a successful broker. And I think that brokers that are not successful try and rush to the finish line. And there's no shortcuts. There's definitely no shortcuts here. There's no shortcuts in life, for sure.
For sure. What are the most common motivations of clients who are buying real estate in New York? It's a ROI, it's a status, it's a security, or maybe something different?
So you do certainly have buyers that buy in New York City as foreign safe deposit boxes, right? So they're investing on 57th Street and they're getting their money out of whichever country they're coming from. So you do have a lot of that. I tend to work with a lot of buyers that need a home, right? So this is a home for their family. This is a home for their kids. This is a home where it's convenient to go to work, right? It's convenient to go to the kids' schools. Oftentimes location plays a big part in my buyers, right? And size and scale, light, air, all of these things play a big role. But I would certainly think location is the biggest driving factor for my set of buyers, right? I'm not talking about buyers that are just coming in here to put in $50 million on 57th Street, right? And deploy money there so it just sits and that it's just basically a safe deposit box, right? I always look at apartments that I sell to clients as an investment as well. So you want a long-term growth plan. I always tell buyers that you don't want to buy and then flip an apartment in 2 years. You want to hold on to it for at least 5 to 10 years as your investment matures. And so you should have a long-term outlook on real estate, because if you look at the graph from 1900 to now, it looks like something like this, right? So the longer you hold on to it, the better off you'll be. You always want to buy in prime locations. A-plus real estate always sells for a premium and will never go down regardless of the market. The market could go down, A-plus real estate will still remain the same, and if not, go up.
Could you tell something more about the A-plus locations?
Yeah, so A-plus locations for me are neighborhoods, right? So I've done a lot of stuff downtown, a lot of stuff in the West Village. West Village is all down zone, so it's a historic site, so it's remained basically true to itself since New York was founded. And then they put the grid system in, so that's why you see all the regular blocks. But West Village has remained down zone because of many reasons historically, and it's a very nice neighborhood, right? There's restaurants, there's bars, everything's walking distance. You don't have high-rise buildings that blocking out all of the light. That to me is a true neighborhood. I live in Tribeca. Same thing with Tribeca. Loft-style buildings that were industrial, right, at the turn of the century, and it's remained that way. You do have some as you get further in Tribeca, the taller buildings, but I try and stay above Chambers and below Canal, and you have cobblestone streets. Those things that are authentic, the most authentic to New York, not the new flashy stuff. That's, to me, the A-plus real estate, because that's the authentic New York that has always been here.
What is the highest price of the real estate which you sold in your
So
career?
I sold $60 million, a $60 million apartment last year. And that was the biggest single sale ever downtown. So downtown is classified below 34th Street to the Battery. So that was nice.
I understand that you can't say anything about the details of the transaction and especially about the client, but from the psychological way or maybe motivational perspective, why did he or she buy such a property?
So it was very unique. It was 6,000 square feet internal, 3,000 square feet of outdoor space. You're on the river, right? So you have direct river views. And I don't think there's another single apartment in anywhere along that's on the west side, right? So I don't think there's another single apartment with those specifications anywhere. And then the building has all of the amenities that you might want for security and privacy, right? So you have your own garage, your own gym, you have a porte cochere. So if you don't want to be seen, you can go down to your garage and then go up in the elevator. You never have to go into the lobby. There's a lot of intangibles at that building. And then the location, it's on Charles, right, and Greenwich. So it's like the epicenter of the West Village. So there was a lot of intangibles with that apartment that the buyer gravitated to. There's a lot of, I've sold, so this is the building I started at as when I was the intern and then the admin. So when I was the admin, I sold this apartment to this guy. This was on paper, 15 years ago. On paper, and then he moved in 12 years ago. He bought it for $29 million, and then we sold it for 60. And it took me that 12 years, because again, I was the admin, right? I was just the little guy, low man on the totem pole. It took me 12 years to gain that guy's trust for me to be able to sell this type of apartment for him. And that meant doing his rental. He owned a lot of real estate. So doing his rental deals, right? Doing his smaller apartment sales, and then getting that client's trust, 10 to 12 years of just being a friend, not a real estate broker, a friend. You're a friend first, and then you can be a broker.
I guess being patient in your job is very important.
I think so. Other people are less patient, I play the long game, and after being in this business for so long, it's certainly served me right to play the long game. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I love people, right? I'm a people person. There's two people in my life that I don't like. I like everybody else, that's it.
Who you don't like?
I'm not gonna, I won't say on this.
I need to ask this question.
They're
I'm
bad
sorry.
people, like really bad people. But I really do, like, I enjoy, what gives me the rush is the working, like, because every individual is different. Every transaction is different, right? And there's multiple people involved in one single transaction. You have the clients, right? You might have kids, you have the attorneys, you have the brokers on the other side, you have the property, you have the building super, you have so many people involved in each transaction that make it so unique and special. And that's what I get out of this. It's not necessarily selling the biggest apartment. Like, yes, that was nice, but it wasn't like, it was the journey, the 10, 12-year journey that got me to that place. That was the special part of it.
I guess that in many different parts of the world, the people who are selling real estate, they very often brag that they sold an apartment or a real estate for 1 million, 2 million, etc. So I'm wondering, is it very common in New York that are there many agents who count they sold properties in billions or not?
No, there can't be that many in billions. There can't be that many.
So how many of you are there?
I want to say like 25 to 50, I would say 25. And how many agents are in New York City? There's like, what, 8,000, 10,000, something like that.
So what are your top
I could be wrong about that,
trades?
like how many, that's probably around the right number, but there aren't that many in the billions.
I think that if in Dubai is it true, there are tens of thousands real estate agents. So I guess in New York, definitely we are counting this in thousands. But I would like to focus on what are top 3 traits of your character, of your style of working that allowed you during those years to accumulate so much trust among your clients that they choose you to work with you, not the other agents.
So, one deal that I did was another deal at 150 Charles. I sold it for Steve Witkoff, who now works for the government, but he's a big developer in New York City. He built 150 Charles again. So I sold his penthouse for him, and he trusted me over, he could have worked with any agent. The other agents that I told you were the biggest agents of their generation at the building, that worked on the building, that had a bigger title than I did. And he chose me to sell his apartment. And I think that him as one of the biggest real estate developers in New York City, if not the world, putting his trust in me to sell his apartment, that's real gravitas, right? You can't buy that. So that we sold, I think it was like $33 million at the time, that apartment. I sold an apartment across the street at 165 Charles for, what was that, 32 million. That was a big deal that I think gave me even more sort of clout, I would say. There's certainly been a bunch of, I generally do like 1 or 2 of these bigger ones a year. I think that remaining consistent in my career, obviously I wasn't doing that in the first 5 years, but for the last 10 years, I've done a big deal every single year, right? And I think that consistency is, on the whole, giving me more and more clout, because
Yeah, but this consistency, as I see it, it's a result of some action. And I would like to hear something more about what do you do day by day that you are able to make those big
so
deals?
my day to day I'm booked from the moment I get up to sometimes I'm working till midnight. I put the kids to bed, I'm working. I will take between 100 and 130 phone calls per day. And those are just phone calls. Those are not my emails. And I'm not cold calling. I'd never have cold called people. So these are conversations with people to talk about a deal or how to make a deal or to get information. All of these calls are for that reason. And I've done that for so long. And so I have now become a wealth of information just by talking to people and imagine doing 120 calls a day for 10 years. That is it. It's crazy. It's crazy. I like information. I don't sell off of emotion. I sell off of information, right? Because I know what's coming to market before anybody else does. I'm able to convey that to my client, right? And give them anything and everything. Like New York City is the most dynamic place in the world, right? So if you're coming in from out of town, you won't maybe understand that I live on Beach Street, right? But there's a big difference between Beach and Hudson than there is from Franklin and Hudson, and or Leonard from Hudson, and or from Canal and Greenwich. These are places that I can look out my window and see. So we're talking about a 3-block radius around my apartment. There are incremental differences between block to block, right? And the same thing goes for Uptown, Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Midtown, Madison Square Park, Gramercy Square Park. All of these, there's nuances to every single block. So having that knowledge is power, right? And it's gravitas, and you're able to convey information to your client that's real and in the moment, right? To the second, to the day. And that's something that nobody else can do. News can't do it. The news cycle, I used to think that like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, New York Post, when they would write an article, they were 6 months behind the market. They've gotten better, but for a long time, 6 months behind the market, where the market was in its cycle, what it was doing, very delayed.
How fast did you figure out that kind of strategy to make so enormous number of calls is a good way to be one of the best?
So I didn't necessarily, I think it happened I talk about organic, but it happened organically, right? I'm a sponge for information, right? So I want to know what's happening right away. I remember my old boss, at Douglas Elliman, he was the head of the company, and we were in a meeting one time, and he goes, "Peter, you fucking talk to too many people. You know too many." I knew he was frustrated at me because I knew too much. So it happened organically. I didn't plan for it to happen, but it's just I'm a frenetic guy, right? So it's just part of my personality, and I want to be ahead of it. I don't want things to come to me, right? I want to go out there and I want to get those things, right? I want to get that information. I want to have friendly relationships. I have friendly relationships with pretty much every single broker in New York City, right? And when you have friendly relationships with people, I can call up anybody, ask them for information, and they'll give it to me. And I will give them information. And oftentimes I will give them information that doesn't help me, right? It'll help them. Hey, I'm looking for this client. You know what? I don't have it, but you should talk to I can name them on my hands. I'm not going to go names, but name everybody. Go to that guy. He has exactly what you're looking for. And then in 5 years, I'll do a transaction with the person that I helped, and that will help me, right? So it's paying it forward, paying all of this forward.
How is it possible that your brain is not overheated after so big numbers of calls every day for several years?
I think it is. I think if you asked with anybody, I mean, Oliver's laughing right here watching me. I think that my brain is overheated. I think that I just keep pushing. I just keep going. I mean, I have 2 kids. So like, I'm also like a part of my life as being like a really good father and a good dad, you know, like I'll come home, like I cooked for them all weekend. I went out to go do work. I'm constantly in motion, right? Objects in motion stay in motion, that kind of thing. So I think I feed off of it. I do like my rest. I like to sleep, but you know, I'm like, I feel like I'm a lion, right? Lions like to sleep, but then when they're out, they're hunting.
Are you using alarm clock?
What's that?
Alarm to wake up every morning, or you just wake
alarm
up?
clock. Yeah, I have an alarm clock. yeah. I do.
Okay. What do you do also? What also do you do to regenerate, to relax, to restore your energy?
So I work out every single day. I've worked out every single day for the last 5 years. Before that, I was probably working out 5 days a week, but I make sure to take care of my body. I take creatine, I take electrolytes. My diet has become better, more like, you know, protein based with vegetables, eating more vegetables, because I did like junk food for a while. So making sure that I'm putting like good things in my body. And then I do crash. So like I do like watching TV for me is a form of sort of crashing and decompressing, even though I'm watching mostly PBS documentaries about the Civil War or World War II, or what else was I watching over the weekend about Shakespeare, the history of New York, Ken Burns, anything Ken Burns and or Rick Burns, I've seen all of them. There's a documentary that Oliver just reminds me about. It's called, it's Ken Burns. It's New York, the documentary. It's about 7 or 8 parts. Each part is like an hour and 30 minutes, but it goes from the time the Dutch settled it into right after 9/11, they made another episode. And it's the most brilliant documentary I've ever seen. And if anybody lives or wants to live in New York, I suggest watching it.
I guess that kind of knowledge is very useful when you speak to the clients, especially from abroad, who don't know a lot about New York, except that they have seen the Kevin in New York.
Exactly. And I think there's a huge opportunity for foreigners to come into New York, but they need to work with a broker that understands New York. Because I've seen so many people come, right? And they see the postcard of New York City, right? And what's the postcard of New York City? It's Central Park, right? So they're like, I want Central Park. So they buy in these 120-story glass towers. They put $50 million, and maybe they don't care, right? But they put $50 million into it. And then I see it resell in 5 years down the road for $30 million, which is a bad investment. And it's painful. And yeah, they're just trying to maybe they're just trying to get money out of their country. But if you understand New York, you are not going to make a bad investment like that. You're going to make a really great investment. And you need a broker that understands the nuances. Again, getting back to block to block to block, to street to street to street. You need to understand those things.
What separates a property in the New York that sells instantly from one that sits on the market for months?
It would get back to location. Like if anything in an A+ location, yeah, it's gonna, we always, people say it all the time, but it's location. A+ real estate always sells for A+ numbers. So people want light, they want air, they want livability, they want space. Those things are becoming harder and harder to find because the land, again, the plots of land that you're normally able to build on are, 50 by 100, call it, right? So they're tight spaces where you have to create 3 bedrooms out of a 2,000 square foot apartment. And when you look at that, that's tiny. There's no closet space. The secondary bedrooms are small. And then you have developers wanting to put 3.5 baths in because they think that they need 3.5 baths to sell. I live in a 3-bedroom loft. I have 2 kids. I have 1 bathroom with 1 sink. And I am happier than I could be. I'd rather be in this apartment than a $60 million apartment on 57th Street. And my apartment's a fraction of the cost.
What people misunderstand about New York, especially when they are from abroad? You mentioned the Central Park, okay, but what else?
It's a good question. The biggest coming in and just looking, because they want to buy what they know. I think they come in and they buy too quickly, right? So you need to take your time. You need to educate yourself, right? If you're working with a broker that's just trying to sell you on something, I could sell you something in a day, but that's not going to behoove you long term, right? And that's not going to be a client that stays long term. You need to not rush into things, right? You're making these are huge, important decisions. Whether you're an investor or whether you're an end user that is living in your apartment, property ownership and home ownership is oftentimes the biggest purchase of somebody's life, right? So it's 50% analytics, right? Where you want the investment, but it's also 50% emotion, right? So you have to be able to balance those two. And the more educated you can be on those things, the better investment and the better home you're going to have long term. So don't rush into anything, right? Make the sound right decisions.
How important for investors from abroad, especially, is the fact that their capital, if they allocate it in the New York, will be protected by the nuclear umbrella, which the United States obviously have.
Like bomb nuclear umbrella?
Yeah, United States, it's not a secret,
Right.
of course. As a country, you have a lot of nuclear bombs. So
Okay, right.
is it important for the investors that the USA has a protection of their nuclear arsenal?
I guess I'd have to say yes. I mean, Russia has a lot of bombs too. I feel what I would say as a New Yorker, I've never felt unsafe living in New York City. Never felt unsafe. I will say that. And I've been here for the better part of I'm 41. I've been here for a total of 30 years. And I've never, you hear stories about people getting stabbed on the streets or mugged or whatever like that. And I'm also a male, it might be different if I was female or something else, but I've never felt unsafe riding the subway. I've never felt unsafe walking down the street. I feel protected as a New Yorker. So to answer your question, as a foreign investor or a foreigner coming into New York City, I would feel very safe.
If someone would have something like $5 or $10 million, what would you recommend right now to invest in? Of course, I understand that it's very important and it depends on which purpose do you have, but in general, what would you recommend?
So I would look at like a really good new development building, right? That has like strong layout, has a great layout, right? That hasn't been sized down to accommodate bedrooms and bathrooms. And then I would look at the location. So I've worked on a lot of projects in my career. Probably the best projects that you could work on in New York City: 150 Charles, 70 Vestry, Zaha Hadid, 111 Murray, 10 Madison Square West. I just did a project in Williamsburg at Williamsburg Wharf, doing a project on 17th Street. I would say that there's another project coming to market that I'm going to be listing, and it's 32 Walker. And we've created these floor plans and layouts. Like the living room is what, something like 30 feet by 50 feet, right? So it's huge, it's livable. The ceiling heights are up to 13.8 in height, and you have floor to ceiling glass, and there's only 5 apartments. So it's, having worked on like some of the best properties in New York City, I think this is like such a gem and such a beautiful designed building. And those properties are under $10 million. And you're in the heart of Tribeca. So that's something that I would look at. You know, if you were looking to diversify, you might buy like a $4 million apartment and a couple $2 million apartments, you know, 1 and 2 bedrooms. Try and go, you do want the bigger the bedroom count, the more investment potential it will have. So like you would probably want to stay at like a 2 bedroom and then a 3 bedroom and diversify the portfolio. I just worked with a client that, a foreigner, but buying for family living in the city. And we were looking for 6 months for a 1 bedroom for $2 million, right? And then ultimately, those are expensive apartments for a 1 bedroom. Ultimately, we decided on a 2 bedroom, so it could be flexible for both of his kids. And we paid a little bit over the $2 million budget. So I think like long term, we made a better investment and a better choice for this particular client. And that takes, like I said, that whole discovery process was 6-7 months, right? It's not, you're not coming in here and buying an apartment within a day. You know, for me, it doesn't happen. It certainly happens, but I think that's a big mistake that people make, is buying too quickly, not understanding the nuances of New York City real estate and what's going to be a long-term investment for them, and then also a great place to live should they choose to live there. Or somebody, like even investors, you're going to want a nice rental apartment, right, for your client, right? Because those rent right away.
Did you have clients in your history from Poland?
Yeah, one client from Poland. Yeah. But he worked in the United States. He worked in Greenwich, but he was from Poland. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know
Tell me,
Russian,
please,
by the way, right? My last name is Russian. Did you know that?
you are Russian.
Yeah. Did you know that?
I didn't
So my last name
know.
means rabbit in Russian. So I'm Peter Rabbit.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Okay. Interesting moment during this conversation. Okay. Okay. The next question. Tell me, please, if someone with the business background, if someone is moving to New York and has zero network, how hard it is to go into the networking circles in the New York? Is it possible, or maybe those circles in New York are very close to the foreigners? How does it look like?
I think it's difficult, and I think that people try to sell to like their friends and family, right? That's an easier way to break into the business. I can tell you from my personal experience that I have not 99.9% of my clients that I've met and sold to, I never knew before I was in real estate. I met them in real estate. I've never sold to anybody that I knew before real estate. So it is hard, and I think this gets back to being like right place, right time, working on being ambitious, learning, and working on the right projects. Because what I did with 150 Charles, and that's where I started, right, is that I handheld because the building we broke ground in 2010. The building didn't get delivered until 2015. So there was 4 or 5 years there where there wasn't anybody, you know, there was nothing. So, people wanted information. So I handheld those clients until they closed on their apartment, and then after they closed on their apartment. And by that time, you get one person that's notable to trust you to resell or rent their apartment. That one person will lead to 5. And those 5 people will lead to 25. And then exponential growth. So all you need is that one person to do a really good job with. That is well connected, right? Well connected, which a lot of New Yorkers are. And that can lead to so much more potential. And that's what I did. But I would say it is a hard business to break into. That's why there's only a few very, very successful brokers, right? 5% of the brokers do 95% of the deals, and there's a reason why. I would say that.
2 last questions. How many people are working around you to help you with your work? And the second one, in what way you are using AI, because I guess you use it, to be more effective in your profession?
So I now have a team, my nuclear team is 4 of us, including me, right? So I have Oliver, who you met. I have Jared, who's a junior agent, and then I have Sam, who's a junior agent. For a long time, it was just sort of, for 10 years, it was probably just me. Then I had an assistant, but now I'm building my team to handle a lot more stuff. And I've also learned all along the way now to like delegate more, because I only have so much time in the day. I've realized, and it's took a long time for me to realize I can't do everything, right? I need really good people around me to help with my career, and so I can ultimately even grow even larger.
What kind of selection you are making? Because I guess if you are a public person, you made a lot of transactions. In your world, you are a very popular person, and because of Netflix, you will be even more popular. So in this trajectory, I guess that there will be a lot of people who will try to connect with you because they will see a lot of benefits for them,
Yeah.
not necessarily for you. So how do you make this selection that this person is a good fit for you, for your team, and this person
Yeah.
not?
So takes me a long time to hire somebody. So the people that I have hired have reached out to me for sometimes 6 to 12 months, right? A follow-up. I'll always take a call and I'll always take a first meeting, but the follow-up has to be consistent and the person has to be a fit for the team, right? So Oliver, for instance, I think was reaching out to me for 6 months. Sam, I joined the company and she was like, I want to work for that person. She reached out to me. It took me 8 months to hire her. The same thing goes with Jared. So I think for me, it's perseverance, right? Because I'm not quick to hire. I'm not hiring, I'm not looking at somebody and saying, there we go, let's go. They're reaching out to me often and being ambitious. And I think that shows a lot of their drive. So that's like the biggest check mark. And then being a personality fit. We work together 24/7 a day, right? So you have to be friends with that person. You have to respect that person. They have to respect me. So all of those things I look for when I'm hiring somebody. And also being able to being able to do things that I can't do anymore, right? I don't do board packages anymore. I don't do the minutia. So having some people that are skilled at those things, be able to do them. I did them at a time. I don't want to do them anymore. I want to just interact with the clients, and I want to build those relationships. And then with the AI, I know AI too. You asked. So I barely use AI.
Really?
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a camouflage.
Yeah. My team does, I think, now, because is super like, so Oliver was putting together, for instance, spreadsheets for me, because a lot of our stuff is data and analytics. And he was like, I figured out how to do this in AI, and it took me, what, five seconds? You had to train it, but it put together exactly what I was looking for in 5 minutes. I don't personally, I haven't really embraced AI. I use it sometimes to create like memes, pictures, but I know. I like the difficult path. I don't like the easy road. It's always like, it just feels like cheating to me. But I know we have a whole AI revolution, and that's another thing that's gonna really dynamically change the world in a real way. And I think that's coming in the next 2 to 3 years. It's going to be like, for instance, my ex-wife worked for Atlassian. Do you know Atlassian? It's a big company out of Australia. And she was at Facebook before that. And then she was interviewing for another job at Google. And basically, Google, I don't know if I can say all this, but I guess I can. Who cares? So Google is something like 50,000 employees, right? Something like that, right? And they were looking for a crisis manager to deal with AI, because the 50,000 employees is going to go down to 5,000. And so what they were looking for was a crisis manager to handle that. And I think they ultimately hired the person that handled the Exxon Valdez oil spill.
The last question.
It's like, this is so like.
What did he just say?
It's going to affect the economy. It's going to affect the world in ways that we don't yet know, but it's going to change.
So the last question may be a tricky one. I strongly believe that if you are very good at something, or maybe even the best in some fields, very often you need to be a weirdo in some way. So I'm interested in what way you are a weirdo that you are making such huge results.
Oliver, you tell me how I'm weird. I always feel like other people are better at explaining.
I don't think you're weird. I think you're yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm myself. I'm certainly weird. Like I constantly use humor, right? All the time. I make crude jokes sometimes, all the time, probably. I'm definitely weird. I'm definitely, my background, my mom and my dad, like two totally different dynamic people that made me weird. Like what else? What do I do? I have OCD. So like everything has to be perfect and clean. And I think a lot of that plays into my personality of being like constantly go, 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 go. Right. So that makes me a little strange. Yeah. What else, Oliver? Name something. Oliver, people know me better than I know myself.
I wouldn't say you're weird.
I'm definitely weird.
Right.
I have a mustache and I have a sort of a mullet, right? Okay. So that
Trendsetter.
that's a little like, I have to be a little weird to have that. Like, I don't think any other real estate broker in New York City has that. Maybe somebody in Texas, but not.
Neither do I.
Yeah. So like right there, like it's a little weird, right?
One book which you recommend about the business, real estate, psychology, whatever. One book which one book which you would recommend to anyone.
So again, maybe it's not the book, but it's New York. If you're looking to learn about New York City and get into real estate, New York, the documentary. That's what I would watch. I watch a lot more documentaries than I read books. I don't read like self-motivational books and things like that. John Krakauer wrote Into Thin Air. Like, it's not about real estate, but that's my favorite book of all time. Just about sort of the tragedy on Everest and the perseverance of the people that made it and the guides that sacrificed their lives. I think it's a cautionary tale, but in a lot of ways inspirational. So I do like that. And then the Ken Burns or Rick Burns documentary on New York is a must watch for New York City real estate. And I did one weird thing that I did. Do you know the Marathon des Sables? So it's a marathon in Morocco. It's 150 miles through the desert where you have to carry all of your own stuff. So your pack weighs about like 32 pounds at the start. And they provide food and shelter. And you run 150 miles through the Moroccan desert. So I did do that. That's a little weird. I like to run long distances. I guess that's a little weird, but running's become more of a thing. I think health and wellness after COVID has become the forefront because we've learned how short life can be and how things can change so fast.
That's true.
And so we're seeing a lot more health and wellness very much in New York City. People doing cold plunge, right? Wim Hof. My mom loved Wim Hof. I think he's like an inspiration to a lot of people. And then spa, infrared spas, working out every day, exercising, moving your body. I think putting the right things into your body, right? Whether it's food or drink, taking care of yourself is the most important thing because everything else is gone at the end of the day, right? It's just us. And it's just the relationships and the people that you knew and that you had relationships with. So forget everything else. Forget the real estate and just focus on the people.
Okay. Wonderful finish line. I only say that after our interview, I'm going to the spa, to the cold plunge. So yeah,
cold plunge?
Of course.
Good.
I start every day from a ice shower. So yeah, it's a normal thing.
My son's 12 years old, takes cold showers.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview. I strongly believe that a lot of people in Polish maybe will start to think about New York as a destination of their capital. So it was a great honor to speak with you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful. This was fun. It was great. All right.
Thank you. See you in the future.
Cheers.
Masz historię, którą warto pokazać? A może chcesz zaprezentować swoją markę? Zobacz możliwości współpracy na przygodyprzedsiębiorców.pl.